This week's Torah portion is Shemini Atzeret, or Eighth Day of Assembly, a special portion for the eighth day of the Feast of Tabernacles. Deuteronomy 16 of this week's portion includes a review of 3 of the biblical holy days, so I decided to focus on that for this commentary. A while ago, I did a commentary on the importance of observing God's commanded holy days in the present time. While the Corner Fringe YouTube channel has several videos on individual holy days, I thought it would be good to have a short video that quickly goes over them. I'm hoping this will be a good resource for those who are new to keeping Torah and would like a quick summary of when the holy days are. Now, Deuteronomy 16 only goes over the 3 pilgrimage feast days, so I'm going to also reference Leviticus 23, which lists all of the holy days. And in verse 2, "Speak to the children of Israel and say to them, the feasts of the Lord, which you shall proclaim to be holy convocations, these are my feasts." Now, the Hebrew word translated as feasts here is moedim, which I've found to be better translated as appointed times. The Hebrew word chag is also translated to feast, and based on my studying, more closely aligns with the English word feast, which involves lots of eating. Now, God calls these holy convocations. For a commentary during the lockdown, I did a study on this term. Since we weren't meeting in person, I was unable to present it, but I recorded a video of it for my YouTube channel. In it, I discuss 4 primary characteristics of all holy convocations. We are to proclaim them, we are to do no work on them, we are to assemble together, hopefully physically, but like during lockdown, spiritually at least, and probably more importantly spiritually even when we are here physically. And lastly, offer offerings, or like now spiritual offerings like praise and worship. Now I go into more detail on each of these in that video. Now let's start with the weekly holy day. Leviticus 23:3. 6 days shall work be done, but the 7th day is a Sabbath of solemn rest, a holy convocation. You shall do no work on it. It is the Sabbath of the Lord in all your dwellings. So every week we celebrate the Sabbath, the 7th day, by foregoing work to assemble here at church. The rest of the holy days are annual. Several of the days are designated by month and day. The Bible uses a different calendar than most people use today. This chart here shows the Hebrew months and what common months they usually align with. Now, there are different calendars which I haven't studied yet and won't be going into today. And because of the different calendars, there are Torah-observant communities and then will celebrate holy days at different times. I believe the important thing to remember is we're called to assemble. So we should be celebrating these days together as a community. And you can look at the back of the Corner Fringe Bulletin to see when we'll be assembling for the next upcoming holy days. Now let's go to this week's portion. Deuteronomy 16:1. "Observe the month of Abib and keep the Passover to the Lord your God. For in the month of Abib the Lord your God brought you out of Egypt by night." Verse 8. 6 days you shall eat unleavened bread, and on the 7th day there shall be a sacred assembly to the Lord your God. You shall do no work on it. And Leviticus 23 gives more detail in verse 5. "On the 14th day of the first month at twilight is the Lord's Passover. And on the 15th day of the same month is the feast of unleavened bread to the Lord. 7 days you must eat unleavened bread. On the first day you shall have a holy convocation. You shall do no customary work on it. But you shall offer an offering made by fire to the Lord for 7 days. The 7th day shall be a holy convocation. You shall do no customary work on it." So we eat the Passover meal the night of the 14th. We assemble on the 15th and the 21st, and we don't have leaven from the 15th through the 21st. And for more details on Passover, I highly recommend Daniel's Passover 101 teaching. Now let's continue in Leviticus 23, verse 10. "Speak to the children of Israel and say to them, when you come into the land which I give to you and reap its harvest, then you shall bring a sheaf of the first fruits of your harvest to the priest. He shall wave the sheaf before the Lord to be accepted on your behalf. On the day after the Sabbath, the priest shall wave it." This is known as the Feast of First Fruits and is not a holy convocation. While offerings were made, there is no command to assemble that day. It's an important date, though, for determining the next holy convocation. Leviticus 23:15. And you shall count for yourselves from the day after the Sabbath, from the day that you brought the sheaf of the wave offering, 7 Sabbaths shall be completed. Count 50 days to the day after the 7th Sabbath. Then you shall offer a new grain offering to the Lord. Verse 21. And you shall proclaim on the same day that it is a holy convocation to you. You shall do no customary work on it. It shall be a statute forever in all your dwellings throughout your in Deuteronomy 6. So this holy convocation is known as the Feast of Weeks and is also in this week's portion in Deuteronomy 16:9. You shall count 7 weeks for yourself. Begin to count the 7 weeks from the time you begin to put the sickle to the grain. Then you shall keep the Feast of Weeks to the Lord your God with the tribute of a freewill offering from your hand, which you shall give as the Lord your God blesses you. So we are to count 7 weeks from the Feast of First Fruits to the Feast of Weeks. Now, there are disagreements with how we count the weeks, like what day we're supposed to start counting. I recommend checking out Pastor Craig's 2018 First Fruits message, where he discusses this in detail. As you can see here, these feasts occur during the first part of the Hebrew calendar. And they are known as the spring feasts. Then there's a break until the 7th month. Leviticus 23:24. Speak to the children of Israel, saying, in the 7th month, on the first day of the month, you shall have a Sabbath rest, a memorial of blowing of trumpets, a holy convocation. You shall do no customary work on it, and you shall offer an offering made by fire to the Lord. So we celebrate the first day of the 7th month by blowing trumpets. And Daniel has done past messages going over the prophetic importance of this day. Now, continuing in Leviticus 23, verse 27, also the 10th day of this 7th month shall be the day of atonement. It shall be a holy convocation for you. You shall afflict your souls and offer an offering made by fire to the Lord. And you shall do no work on that same day, for it is the day of atonement, to make atonement for you before the Lord your God. The Day of Atonement is a solemn holy day to afflict our souls. And what does this mean? Well, some say it's just to be humble and repentant. But Daniel's done messages showing how it's scripturally understood as a day of fasting. And now we have arrived at the final feast that we're finishing up today. Deuteronomy 16:13. You shall observe the Feast of Tabernacles 7 days, when you have gathered from your threshing floor and from your winepress. And once again, Leviticus 23 gives more detail. Verse 34, speak to the children of Israel, saying, the 15th day of the 7th month shall be the Feast of Tabernacles for 7 days to the Lord. On the first day there shall be a holy convocation. You shall do no customary work on it. For 7 days you shall offer an offering made by fire to the Lord. On the 8th day you shall have a holy convocation, and you shall offer an offering made by fire to the Lord. It is a sacred assembly, and you shall do no customary work on it. Like unleavened bread, this is a feast that lasted multiple days and had holy convocations at the beginning and end. So here we can see all the fall holidays all taking place in the 7th month. And what do we do during the week of the Feast of Tabernacles? Leviticus 23:42, you shall dwell in booths for 7 days. All who are native Israelites shall dwell in booths, that your generations may know that I made the children of Israel dwell in booths when I brought them out of the land of Egypt. I am the Lord your God. And Daniel has a teaching where he discusses these booths and other aspects of Sukkot, the Feast of Tabernacles. So here we can quickly see again where the fall holy days are relative to the spring holy days. And here we have all the holy days listed. The weekly Sabbath, the week of Passover, First Fruits, which isn't a holy convocation, the Feast of Weeks, the Feast of Trumpets, the Day of Atonement, and the Feast of Tabernacles. And like I mentioned at the beginning, this week's portion was specifically about the 3 pilgrimage feast days. Deuteronomy 16:16. 3 times a year all your males shall appear before the Lord your God in the place which he chooses, at the Feast of Unleavened Bread, at the Feast of Weeks, and at the Feast of Tabernacles, and they shall not appear before the Lord empty-handed. Now, I hope this was helpful. I still have a hard time remembering the holy days, which is a big reason why I did this study. And please take them to heart. There's a reason God instructed us to continually celebrate these days. The Sabbaths and holy days aren't optional social gatherings. They're commanded by God so we can meet with him on a regular basis. Shabbat shalom.